Hi, Akaimi.
Hello, Kirsten.
How are you?
I am actually doing very well today. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I am wonderful. I am so happy that you're here. Our audience tuning in has no idea what it took to get you here. And I was thinking about it before you came. We're honored to have you.
Thank you.
And I was trying to think of how I would describe you to someone because we've met before,
Yes.
but we're not like around each other all the time.
Right.
And just what it took for you to get here today, we had a couple of shows that we had tried to plan.
Exactly.
But you have a very eventful life. You have a very full life. So I just want to express my gratitude. And you driving, 2 hours to come and talk with us and share a little bit about your life and your journey. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I would like to also thank you for having me today and for being flexible enough to work around my schedule
Absolutely.
and my weird health situations. This is
I get
actually
it.
our third try, so third time's a charm.
Yes, exactly. I knew it was going to work out this time.
Yes.
I knew it. I felt it like in my shondo. I'm like, this is it. So one of the practices that I have instituted with this show is giving honor to every guest by asking the origin of their name, the meaning of their name, the correct pronunciation of their name, and any other context that you would like to give. Initially, I had been calling you Akaimi.
Right, which a lot of people do.
Yes. So let's clear that up.
Okay.
What is your actual name and its proper pronunciation, and what is the root of your name?
Yes. So the proper pronunciation of my name originates from a Hawaiian pidgin dialect. Mm-hmm. It is pronounced Akaimi. Mm-hmm. So every single letter of my name is pronounced. My name is spelled A-K-A, K, and then I-M-I-M-E, Akaimi.
Right.
So that is the proper pronunciation of my name. In Hawaiian pidgin, it means smart girl or wise one.
I can see that. And if, I don't know how many people are watching, let's clear up what pidgin is.
Yes.
I don't want anyone to think we're talking about a bird. So for those who are watching or who may watch later, pidgin is sort of like, it's kind of like Creole.
Like Creole.
Exactly. It's a mixture of various
many
dialects
languages
and phonetic sounds. So we're not talking about birds, but we're talking about a mixture.
That's right.
And thank you for breaking that down for us, because I think, I say this every single episode, saying someone's name properly and addressing them that way is like the easiest and the best way to honor someone.
Yes.
And I think it's really cool that you have such a unique name, because you are an artist.
I am.
In every sense of the word. Like, that is who you are. So
right.
I think I'd like to start by asking you, how young were you when you knew, like deep down inside, like, I have this creative energy and I am an artist? Like,
yes.
When did that crystallize for you?
I was 5. I know the exact moment.
Yes.
So I actually was fortunate enough to attend a private Black preschool. So in kindergarten, my teacher, Mrs. Anderson, I will never forget her. She asked us one day to draw what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I remember drawing myself with this little green artist's beret, and I was like, I am going to be an artist.
Really?
So that was my dream when I was 5. I actually did a lot of painting and drawing as a child, and believe it or not, my very first customer was my big sister.
Oh, I love it. She knew.
Yes, she
knew,
purchased a little piece. I made these things. They were called rock heads. So I would go out in the yard and I would find rocks, but I would draw faces on them and stick them to paper and draw out their bodies. And so she bought one from me for like $5.
I love
and
that.
it just made
So you were an
day.
artist and an entrepreneur at
a very
an early
age.
And it's funny because the more and more, I think, so we titled this episode 6.5.
Right.
But this is technically the 7th episode.
Ah.
Everyone that I have interviewed has kind of said the same thing. They knew what they wanted to be at a really early age.
Yes.
And I think that's a lesson for parents. Like
Absolutely.
when we're raising our children and guiding them through life, to see them and to listen to them and honor their wishes and their expression, whatever that expression is. Some people are not creative. So if they decide they want to do something that's, not in a creative field, we have to listen to our kids. I'm really thinking that's a lesson that I'm personally, taking from this. So you have done so much in your lifetime. And even though you are an artist and you're a creative soul, you spend a lot of time in corporate America.
I did.
So what did that look like for you? How did that feel, being a creative person in that paradigm?
Yes.
Like, talk to us about that, because
I
I'm
almost
curious.
say in that box.
I was like, in that.
Because it did get to the point that it felt like a box. So a little bit about my background, my work history. I actually started cosmetology school straight out of high school. So I graduated from high school June of 1994. Like that following week, I was already enrolled in cosmetology school. So I was a licensed hairstylist and I worked for myself. I was self-employed. I was an entrepreneur at the age of 18, which is not something back in our day. Like now, you have people on Instagram that, kind of get Insta famous or TikTok famous or, whatever it is through social media. But back then that was like an unheard of thing to own your own business at 18.
Absolutely.
I should also point out that I had 2 young children at 18. Oh. So today, if I can, I'd like to give a shout out to my son.
Yes.
Today is his 29th birthday.
Happy birthday. What's your son's name?
His name is Terrence.
Happy birthday, Terrence.
Thank you. So as a means of providing for my son, part of the story and part of my history is that his father was killed in a car accident tragically when I was 12 weeks pregnant at the age of 16. So I had him, I gave birth to him about 3 weeks after my 17th birthday.
Wow, okay.
And he is now 29. So you do the math on how old I am.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I had Terrence, and then I also had my second child. They are 16 months and 11 days apart.
Oh, okay.
Woo! It was almost like having Irish twins in a sense.
Absolutely.
Even though they weren't born in the same year. But as a mom, a single mom, because obviously my child's father is deceased. So there is no extra, like it's just me. And fortunately my mom who, kind of stepped in and helped a lot. So I am grateful for that.
Yes.
But with that being said, that is why I chose that path to self-employment, because I don't want to say it was fast money, but it was daily money.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
So even like there was a time that I worked for Supercuts. That's actually how I learned to cut hair with precision.
Okay.
So being able to come home with tips every day.
Yes.
To buy milk, to buy diapers, to, do the things that moms need to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is how I made a way. But I've always been a creative soul. So going back to the corporate America question, it's funny because my son brought this up the other day. As I was cleaning the yard one day, and my boys were young, they were probably 3 and 4, I would say, about that age. Okay. I was outside cleaning the front yard, trimming the hedges with one of the electric hedge trimmers. And I'm looking, checking, making sure that they're not running out into the street and, because they're rambunctious boys.
As boys do, yeah.
And I wasn't paying attention. And when I reached up to grab the chainsaw, the hedge clippers, I grabbed the blade and it nearly severed these 4 fingers.
Oh my.
Now, going back to this whole self-employment thing.
That's your livelihood in your
That's
hands.
my livelihood. I can't wash people's hair. I can't apply chemicals. I can't dye people's hair and bleach hair. I literally could not do anything.
Yeah.
Even with gloves on. I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. So it was at that point I was like, you know what? I should probably go back to school and get some sort of backup plan going. And so I took, again, no internet back in these days. So I went to the library.
Yes.
And I want to say I did like an aptitude test.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
I
They'll
did
tell
an
you what you're best
aptitude
suited
test.
for. Yes, I remember those.
And the results said I should either be a commercial artist or a copywriter. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. So I enrolled in community college and ultimately got my degree in communication design, which is graphic design.
Right.
And then I took it further. I transferred to Texas State from Austin Community College, and I got my bachelor's degree from Texas State in communication design. And I entered the world of art direction.
Wow.
And that is actually how I managed to move from Austin, which is my hometown,
Okay.
born and raised, Austin, Texas, made it here to San Antonio
Okay.
by way of my job. So I landed a job here in San Antonio with a major employer.
Yes.
Working as an art director in their advertising department. So I did everything from billboards to designing 18-wheelers. So a lot of what you see on the highway, if you are ever in one of the major grocery stores.
You're speaking of.
Yes,
So, yes,
and I have
I've
to be
seen-
really careful
Of
about that because
absolutely. Well, you're no
I
longer
do-
affiliated. But
I
you
am no
still-
longer affiliated,
Right.
but also there are some legalities.
Absolutely.
We
understand.
Yes,
We
thank you,
understand.
thank you. So I don't call names.
Yes. Yes.
But those who know me know who I'm speaking
Right,
of. And
right.
and in actuality, it's one of the best companies that
Oh,
I
yeah.
have ever in my life worked for.
Yeah.
So there was that aspect of it. But the conflict came when I became ill. So going through the process, running out of FMLA, running out of vacation days, not having an accurate diagnosis as to what was going on, therefore they couldn't extend long-term disability to me. I had to go back to work, and it did not work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the other end of this story is that I wound up being diagnosed with a very rare form of leukemia. And I resigned my job and began chemotherapy the following month after I resigned.
And so we're just going to be like super frank. We
Yes.
actually had a conversation before the interview.
Yes.
And I know that the media that I have seen that has covered you and has talked about your journey paints you in a light where it's like Akaimi, the artist who overcame leukemia.
Right.
Akaimi, the artist with cancer.
Yes.
Akaimi, and those two things seem to always be in the balance.
Exactly.
And as a human being with lots of facets and a lot of depth, I think it's important for people to understand how you were able to use your art as a way to sustain yourself and to
Absolutely.
help you process your healing or process through your healing. But there's so much more there. So I would like to know what creating did for you in that space, because you and I have some things in common. And when you have an illness that's chronic, it's a lot. We'll just leave it at that. So what did your art do for you? How did it feed you during
Right.
the time where you were newly diagnosed and, in and out of hospitals? What did that look like?
Well, it's funny or not that you use the words, how did it feed you? Because it literally put food on my table.
Yeah.
So, undergoing chemotherapy, I had chemotherapy agents that I would take by pill. Mm-hmm. It was a cocktail of 7 pills that I would take every Sunday. So I knew from Sunday to Wednesday, I'd be wiped out.
Right.
Thursday, okay, I'll kind of be gaining my strength back. So I would use that time to distract myself. I remember, so let me back up a little bit. I actually had exhibitions in Austin.
Yes.
Before I came to San Antonio. But I kind of put that by the wayside because, again, I've got this awesome corporate job working at the headquarters here.
Right.
I used to make my friends laugh. I'm like, that I live 9 minutes away from my desk.
Yeah. And in Austin,
not
that's
just from
huge.
the parking lot, but from my desk. It
Yeah.
takes me 9 minutes to go from my back door to sit at my desk.
And that's huge in Austin because the traffic is like, it's like Dante's ninth circle of hell.
Oh my gosh. And even speaking of that, just the cost of living, and it's like being able to afford to live on the Riverwalk. And I don't want to cry and get emotional about this, but where we lived in East Austin, coming from...
Do we have tissue, our producer? Do we have tissue?
There's some paper towels. I'll take a paper towel if necessary. Like, I'm going to try to control it. But coming from a space where my then 8-9-year-old daughter is watching drug deals go down literally across the street from our front porch,
Right.
watching prostitutes turn tricks from my front porch. I'm like, my children have to know that there's more to life than this. And that's why I took the leap.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is why I took the leap.
Yes.
And so being able to move from that environment to a place where my daughter can sit and soak in a rooftop pool and listen to jazz coming from the VFW on the Riverwalk. Being able to provide those two different experiences, that was important. That was so important to me.
Yeah.
So with all of that being said, I turned to art as a therapeutic process to distract me from the nausea, from the sickness, from the fatigue, from, everything. It gave me a creative outlet. I refer to it almost as like a form of meditation and prayer.
Absolutely.
Because that is when I connect to divine, I connect to source. I consider myself to be a vessel through which divine can speak to the collective. That is how I look at it. This is my ministry.
Yes.
So yeah, I hope that answered.
No, it absolutely does. And I love that you said it's your ministry because I think I know that we live in a society that tends to frame ministry a certain way.
Yes.
So you have to look a certain way.
Yes.
The messages have to be delivered a certain way. You have to use a particular set of words and language. And
your deity has to be referred to as a specific label. And if it's not, then your deity is wrong from, Yes,
all of that. And I am just grateful that there are creative people who understand what their assignment is.
Yes.
And you are absolutely one of those people. Like, it's very apparent talking to you and being in your presence. Like, you know why you're here.
Yes.
And that is a very high form of stepping into one's power. So after you relocated and made that shift, was it then that you said, you know what, I'm really good and I'm really going to make some serious money? Did that come like as an epiphany, like overnight? Did you gradually step into that space? Because I'm trying to build up to, you've done a lot artistically and I'm trying to figure out where the shift occurred within all of that, where you're like, I can really do this professionally and not have to go back to any corporate entity.
I can tell you exactly when that was. I attempted to go back to work.
Yeah.
So another piece of this story that the public does not know, people on Facebook, like you and I were talking,
Right.
my Facebook family literally is people that I went to elementary school with, people that I went to high school with, people that, know me.
Yeah. The way back.
Very well.
Yeah.
Versus what's on Instagram. So with that, I would say these epiphanies came in increments. I don't know if that makes sense, but maybe the more that I
Absolutely.
talk, it will. So I went back to work. I left my husband at the time, who was very abusive to me. And I try not to go into that rabbit hole.
I understand.
So I'm trying to just skim the surface of that
understand.
because, whew,
Whatever you need it to look like is fine.
yes.
I understand.
So at the time that I left him that day, I literally threw clothes into garbage bags, my daughter's clothes and my clothes into garbage bags, and the police escorted me to a women's shelter here in San Antonio. And I didn't have any answers. I didn't know how else to make a way, and I was fortunate enough to have a very close friend that put my daughter and myself up in a hotel for 33 days. 33 days.
33,
I know exactly how long it was. Until I could establish employment and provide documentation that this is how much I make so that I can qualify 3 times the rent to get my own place to live. Otherwise, guess what? I'm on chemotherapy. I cannot be on chemotherapy and living in a women's shelter and sharing a room
No, absolutely
with
not.
5 other women and their kids. That was not going to work for me. And I had to turn over my medications. That was the other thing. So I was like, no, it's not going to work. I called my friend. I was like, look, this is what's happening. And I'm very grateful for that person coming through.
Collective breath.
Yes.
But let me just say this, because I'm going to give you a little bit of time to breathe
Thank you.
through it. That's what this show is for. And I have expressed to our producer, when I first decided to do the show, I was kind of vacillating between what demographic I wanted to interview. And I came to the realization that I really, truly want to focus on talking to Black women and having a place for us to share our stories specifically.
Yes.
Because we have very unique life experiences. We have very unique circumstances. And it's so important that we tell our stories through our own voices, through our own lens and perspectives, without someone else trying to interpret them to us or for us.
And narrate them for us.
Absolutely. So as I sit here and I listen to you, and I know that it's emotional.
Yes.
I'm grateful because a friend of mine said once, when we share our stories, we're all walking one another home. And that is so powerful. So, thus far, I know now that you've shared with us that you were a single mother at a very young age.
Yes.
You've dealt with an illness that, a lot of people aren't around anymore because of.
That's right.
You have dealt with an abusive spouse.
Yes.
And you're here.
I am still here.
You are here. Like, you're here with us
still
today. You're sharing your story with us. And that is powerful because I know this for a fact. Somebody's going to see this one day.
Yes.
And she's going to see herself in you.
Yes.
And she's going to say, okay, well, she is making it. She's made it. I can do it too. So thank you for being so transparent. I know there's a lot of layers there.
So many.
Yeah. Yeah. But I appreciate that.
Yes.
So, 'cause, I mean, I know that you shared with us that you were a single mother at a very young age. You have dealt with an illness that, a lot of people aren't around anymore because of. You have dealt with an abusive spouse.
Yes.
So you have at this point done several things with your art. And I know that you've had galleries represent you.
Right.
I know that you are also, and I want to make sure I use the appropriate terminology. Are you licensing your artwork?
I am.
Can we talk about that? I don't know.
We
Is it all,
absolutely
everything's clear?
can.
Okay, let's talk about that. Because that's exciting. That's what every artist
It's
wants to
so
do.
cool.
They're like, how do I get my stuff out to the masses
Yes.
without having to paint 5,000 paintings?
That's right.
So can you talk about, share with us how that process worked, what it looked like?
Yes.
And what you're doing now, because I find that very exciting.
Well, I'll tell
and
you.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I actually did become licensed in 2020.
Okay.
So that came about.
During the panini.
Yes. So that actually came about via social media. And this young lady that I was following, and she and I, had been social media friends, Instagram friends for a really long time. Very talented young lady in DC. And she was approached by the licensing company. They wanted to mass produce.
Are her initials AM?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
No.
thought I knew who you were talking about.
That's
Go ahead.
okay. That's okay. So yeah, they asked her, do you know of any, because they were trying to expand their Black art representation. And they asked her, do you know of any other artists who, would potentially fit with what we're looking for? And she passed on my name. And so again, being grateful for the paths that cross along my journey. I don't believe that any meetings are random. Nothing is a coincidence. Everything is meant to happen.
Absolutely.
So she did pass my name along. They contacted me. So I went through that process. It was a vetting process. It was not just okay, great, we like your stuff, come on.
Right.
So I did go through that and managed to, it was a lot of work on my end.
Yes.
To prepare everything. And that's the other side of stuff. I don't want to get into like the technicalities of, I don't know, the equipment that I had to get and the programs that I had to use to make my work fit what they were trying to do. So iCanvas is the name of the company.
Okay.
So they do represent, or I won't say represent, they represent artists, right? But they also take wholesale orders from places like TJ Maxx, from Ross, from Target. So Zulily, that is their customer base.
Okay.
So they offered to license all of my work for the next 2 years. So everything that I produce is now licensed, and they can reproduce on canvas for me.
That's amazing.
And so I am blessed to be able to receive royalty checks. Yes. So, that's the other side of things, to be able to license my work. And it was not just to iCanvas, but I also licensed work to AfroPic.
Oh, okay.
Which is a Black-owned, they're brothers.
Yeah,
but it is a Black-owned business, and they license artwork to put literally on AfroPics.
Yeah.
So I consider myself very blessed.
Yes. Well, and I love that you're sharing kind of, not all the minutiae necessarily, but the process, what that looked like, because being an artist and a business person, those two things are like a tightrope walk.
It really is. And they're almost like oil and water.
Yes. And a lot of, I don't like to buy into the starving artist narrative so much, but I do know that it can be a struggle, because that right brain, left brain dichotomy is so very real. I talk about it all the time. And so the natural inclination is just create, 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 and everything will fall into place.
Right.
But I think a lot of artists need to know that if you're going to be, and I'm careful with the word successful, because we're all successful.
That's right.
But if you're going to create some ease for yourself later on.
I like that, yes.
There's certain things that you can do and having your work licensed is a huge part of that.
Major.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Because that's really amazing.
Thank you.
And I know that can help you have a little bit of space.
A little bit,
a little bit of a little bit of space. So I know that you've also done, we were talking before, I actually met you at a fashion show.
Yes.
And I already shared with you, you were just like a ray of light. And that's why I remembered you. You were very sweet and you were painting live.
Right.
So I know that you still do events here and there. What does that look like for you in terms of like balancing your life and what you have going on, and then like events or, you know, pop-up shops, or how often do you do those things? Like, where can people expect to see you or find you?
Right. Well, okay. So of course, you know, probably it goes without saying, with my compromised immune system.
Yes.
Because I do continue to undergo treatment at MD Anderson every 4 weeks. So every month I travel to Houston, and I see my oncologist. But with the pandemic,
right, not so much on
that really just kind of flipped the table.
Yeah. Yes.
In some good ways, but also in some not so great ways, because now I don't have the ability to, I don't want to say that. I don't take the chance of exposing myself. So I have had COVID twice.
Okay, that I don't think I realized that.
I think, okay. So when I took my hiatus from social media, my birthday was July 15th. So just a few weeks ago, I was admitted to the hospital on my birthday with COVID.
Oh.
So I just got over it.
Oh my.
I have now completed my, 21-day quarantine.
Yeah.
But I was in the hospital from the 15th of July until the 20th. And I'm here.
Whew, yeah, we're so lucky. We're so blessed that you're here.
Yes, thank you.
Well, and I remember, I think I maybe didn't put two and two together that it was COVID twice.
Oh, right.
Because I've seen, like, you're very transparent. And so you typically document in some form or fashion when you're in the hospital and what's going on.
Yes.
And so I know that I had seen it, but I didn't know that it was specifically COVID. And, you know, you had even... I have to talk about this.
Okay.
Because, and I'm kind of going like
you're good.
around the corner a little bit. But one thing, and we don't have to talk about it too long, but one thing that's really difficult to navigate when you do have a chronic health issue is interpersonal relationships and professional relationships, and people not always understanding what that looks like, and how literally one day you can be fine.
Yes.
And then the next day you're knocked off your feet.
That's right. That's right.
How do you choose what people to have around you?
That is actually a very easy question to answer.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Give it to us.
The way that I choose the people within my inner circle, has to be people that don't come with extra. Don't come at me with the chaos.
Right.
Don't come at me with the drama. And know that I am going to support you as my friend, as my companion, as my partner, whatever it is. Know that I'm going to support you in those same ways. So those people that literally are on my favorites list on my phone, that the phone rings because my phone is on Do Not Disturb from literally midnight until 11:59 p.m. So unless you're calling me between 11:59 p.m. and 1 second,
right,
and 11:59 p.m. and 59 seconds, my phone is not going to ring for you.
That's smart.
And I've had to do that, again, because people will take advantage of access. So even with my social media, as I mentioned, I went on hiatus for a little bit. Instagram, I get bombarded with a lot of messages. So it's to the point now that I'm kind of weaning myself off of answering DMs. If you're looking for something, you can email me.
Right. Go to the website. That's
I
what
have
it's
a
for.
website.
Yes.
That's right. If you're looking to purchase something, here it is. Here are the prices.
Right.
So it really is, just like I was saying earlier, it's really about building that fiery hedge of protection.
Yes.
Not just around myself, but also around the people who are around me.
Absolutely.
I protect them too.
Yeah.
It's really important because what affects them also affects me, whether directly or indirectly. So that's how I choose.
And, I think as a creative person, anyone who has any creative spirit knows that when you have like some stress we can't control.
Correct.
But when we have external factors that are stressful or that are like energy draining, it affects your art. It affects your ability to, I don't want to say produce, but to create.
To create, it does.
And so you almost have to have that very fierce barrier that you erect. So I completely get that. Now, I want to ask you about your actual art in itself and how you choose to represent the I don't want to say characters, but what you portray in your art, because I know that you are a multicultural Black woman.
I am, yes.
So you have, we call it a gumbo.
Right.
You have a multicultural.
I am the melting pot.
Yes. And we can talk about that. But I know that your artwork in itself, when I look at it, I see very African features.
Yes.
I see different tones of burnt sienna and, brown and sepia. And it's very much rooted in what I see as like African phenotypes. So how did you make the decision, being that you are so multicultural, to have your art look like this?
Well, I am so glad that you asked, Kirsten. Okay, so part of my ancestral lineage, my paternal side of my family, they are Seminole Creek, indigenous to this land.
Yes.
My maternal side, however, comes from Mexico. Right. They are the Spaniards that came over into Mexico.
Right.
So tying all of this together, a lot of this I had not really pieced together until I was diagnosed with leukemia. Because the form of leukemia that I had, and thankfully I've been in partial remission, it's considered partial remission since June of 2015. So even though I undergo maintenance, therapy, treatment, whatever it is that you want to call it, every 4 weeks, my last several bone marrow biopsies have not shown any cancerous or malignant cells in my marrow or in my peripheral blood. So that is a very important piece of things. However, my immune system did not bounce back and recover once I completed chemotherapy.
Okay.
Now, when I was initially diagnosed, and again, keep in mind, this was like 2012. This is a blood disorder that was just defined in the 80s. So based upon the medical studies and whatnot that had been done, it was said to have affected white males, particularly of Jewish ancestry, over the age of 60. So I was a 35-year-old Black woman.
You're like, that's not me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I went to the oncologist here at Fort Sam, who got fired immediately, she asked me how I identified. I said, well, what do you mean? She says, well, what's your nationality? I said, I'm an American. What are you asking me? I don't understand.
Right.
I'm an American. That's my nationality.
Right.
I said, are you asking what my race is? And she said, yes. I said, well, I identify as a Black woman. So she told me, well, I believe that you have something called benign ethnic neutropenia. And she went on to tell me how she had just diagnosed 5 other people with the same disorder. And I said, well, wait, because I've been Black for like 35 years.
As long as I could remember.
Yeah, I've been Black for 35 years. And this just became a problem in like the last 12 months.
Right.
So But with that being said, I did go ahead and do the DNA. I did the ancestry. I had genetic research done at MD Anderson.
Okay.
And come to find out, my mother is the one with the Middle Eastern ancestry.
Okay.
Which goes back to the Jews who went to Spain and then fled religious persecution because they refused to convert to Catholicism, and they came to Mexico.
Interesting.
So that's where my mother's family comes from. Now, part of this story, according to my mom, what would be, let's see, let me count back. Okay, so my mother, her grandfather. So my mother's grandfather's father. That even makes sense.
That would be your
That would be
great
right.
grandfather. Okay.
Right. So my mother's grandfather was a slave from North Carolina, and he met up with a Mexican woman who actually turns out to be Comanche Arapaho. And I did find them on the tribal rolls.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
Yes. Her family disowned her.
Because she married a black man.
Because she married a black man. Therefore, we took on the identity of being black.
Right. Yeah.
Even though that's not
the totality.
The totality of who we were.
Right.
And are. So I was raised as a black woman by a black man.
Right.
In a black community in East Austin. I went to black schools. My comrades were black.
Yeah.
So I look at it almost as like when I think about the corporate America thing, the fact that, and I know that this is going to resonate with so many black people, male or female, we know how to be chameleons. We know how to move in this space over here and this space over here. So even though we may not be multilingual,
right,
I can go to the hood in Austin.
Right.
And you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say what I say. And I understand what you mean when you say what you say. But I can also go sit over here in this boardroom and I can talk to these white people.
I call it being multispatial.
That works.
Because we, sometimes by necessity, sometimes by decision, sometimes by force, have been able to adapt in a way that not many other communities have.
Yes. And I feel like it's also because they didn't have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you made a conscious decision, it sounds like, to represent that in your art.
Yes.
Because that was your cultural identity,
exactly.
Even if your ethnic identity was an amalgamation of all of these things.
That's right.
This is what you identify with.
That's right.
Because that's how the world is seeing you.
Exactly. So when people look at me, you know, even though I am obviously very fair complected, but they see the hair,
right?
Especially now that I've locked my hair,
right?
You know, but yeah. That is why I represent sometimes men come up in my paintings. So part of my process, I'm an intuitive painter. I don't go in with a preconceived idea or notion or sketch unless it's a commission that I'm doing. Right. And commissions take a lot out of me, so I really don't do them.
Yeah.
Because
usually people who do commissions don't understand the artistic process.
Right.
They're wanting you to create something that they can't create.
Right.
And they see it. And
but they see it, but they can't make it.
Right.
And it's like, well, I can't see inside your head to make what you want this to be. So it took me back kind of to that designer-client relationship.
Yes.
That I wanted to break free from because that was not healing to me.
Yes.
That was not creating someone else's vision.
It's almost counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It is very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It does not allow me release that I need for my own catharsis.
Yes.
So I rarely take on commissions unless it's somebody that I know really, really well. Like the last commission that I did, she's an amazing friend of mine. I love her dearly. You know, and
Right.
so for people like that who know
And respect your
and
process.
respect my process. That's
Absolutely.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So you used one of my favorite words, which is catharsis. And whether you're an artist or not, all people need something to help us process life.
Yes.
Now, I know that there is something that you have had to contend with as of late
Yes.
that is not only, I'll just use the word challenging, but also is kind of a testament to just the state that we live in, the physical state, the metaphorical state, you know, just the world that we live in.
Yes.
And I know it's very important for you to talk about this. And I know that your art has helped you get through this as well. So, you know, we all know COVID was a hot mess. The lockdown, it was devastating to everyone. On top of all of the other things that you do and have done, you also have been your mother's caretaker.
That is correct.
Well, you're an only child.
Yes, I am.
And when you're an only child, things fall on that child.
Squarely on these shoulders.
Yeah. So let's walk through some of the challenges. I don't want to just dive in.
I know.
But some of the challenges that you've been presented with.
Yes.
And where you are right now. And then maybe we can just kind of like walk back.
Yeah,
through it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, a lot of the challenges again, considering the fact that we've already talked about my health situations, the fact that I am an immunocompromised person, I am still undergoing treatment. During this process, when the freeze, Snowpocalypse 2021, February 14th. Oh, goodness. There was a series of events that actually pushed me into Austin on that day.
Right.
And I wound up staying with my sister-in-law. And I literally woke up. So we got snowed in. Me and my kids and my granddaughter got snowed in at my sister-in-law's house. And I woke up literally with that gut feeling. I had that intuition. I reached out on Facebook. I was like, hey, is there anybody in this zip code that can go by and check on my mom? Because there's no phone, there's no heat, there's no water, you know, there's no, all this stuff, right? And of course, you know, we lived through it. So we know the state of Texas at that point when the power grids went down. So my ex-husband, my first husband, actually got up and drove me. He was like, I can't let you go across town slipping and sliding in the ice. You don't know how to drive on the ice.
Yeah.
I'll take you.
Most Texans don't.
Yeah, definitely don't. I definitely don't. Listen,
Yeah.
I barely know how to drive on the pavement.
On the regular road.
So we get there, and my mom's house is flooding. The pipes have burst. And when I walked into the house and I was yelling for my mom, calling out for her, not getting an answer, I, of course, immediately thought the absolute worst, like, my mother is dead.
But thank God
faintly-
she wasn't. Yeah.
Very faintly heard her calling for help. And I found her upstairs in her bedroom. And if I hadn't gotten there when I did, my mother would have died in that snowstorm.
Yeah.
She was too cold to move. I don't know how many days she had been in the bed at that point. And I'd also like to point out that I'd already involved adult protective services because of the conditions that she was living in. So they were well aware
Right.
of the situation, and they did nothing.
She shouldn't have ever been there in
She
that.
should not have been placed in that predicament.
Yeah.
And I asked for help months before this happened. I asked for help. I asked for help from Travis County, and I got nothing. So to find my mother in that state, so now, my ex-husband picks my mother up and carries her out of the house, and I'm grateful for the fact that we have technology. I'm grateful for the cloud.
Yes.
I'm grateful for cell phones. I'm grateful for cameras. Because the house was demolished and there's no proof
What the condition was prior to the flooding.
correct.
Yeah. I'm grateful for your intuition
Me too.
because, my grandma used to say, God is God, baby.
Yes.
Our elders say things all the time that we disregard. It's like, oh, they're just talking crazy talk. But it's true. When that
Yes.
voice speaks, that is a direct line to source, and
Yes.
we need to act on it. So I'm glad that you had the sense enough
Yes.
to listen to that and say, let me go see about my mama.
Right.
Like that.
And I'm also grateful that I was close enough,
Yes.
because had these other events not transpired, I would have been in San Antonio and not
Close enough
close to Austin.
Right.
In the annex. So I am very grateful for that. The flip side of that now is trying to care for my mother. Like you mentioned, I am an only child. So my oldest and my youngest children uprooted their lives to come help take care of grandma.
Right.
And it got to the point that we were not qualified to take care of her. We could not provide the supervision that she needed. And this is where we are now. And unfortunately, the facility where my mother is located right now is trying to use a state agency to bully me. And I don't really know how to navigate this.
Right.
But even within that, trying to find a way to not allow this to stifle my creativity, trying to find a way that, again, I can navigate this day-to-day life and continue to put food on the table and continue to pay bills and continue to do all of these things. And I just have to say it point blank, I'm really disappointed in the state of Texas.
Yeah, that's okay to say. I think a lot of people feel that way for different reasons.
Sure.
And they're all valid. There's like a sentiment in America where people feel like, well, if you don't like it, go
Then
somewhere
leave.
else.
Yes.
And I equate it to being a parent. And if you have a child and you really love that child, you don't withhold critique, because then they end up spoiled rotten.
True.
So it is very important to express when there is disappointment or possibly even anger. There's definitely a place for venting
Yes.
and expressing that, especially when it affects you in such an impactful way.
Yes.
Do you think, well, let me back up. I was going to ask a question, but I think I'll say this first. What you're describing, I think in our communities, we have a tradition of really taking care of our elders
Absolutely.
that I don't think all other communities necessarily have.
Yes.
So I know that in itself, that you are not fully equipped to take care of your mother in that way. I know that must be a heavy thing.
It is.
But I have to commend you and give you your flowers for doing everything within your power, despite the odds.
Right.
To take it day by day and, bite by bite.
Right.
'Cause sometimes that's all it is. It's like
that
a bite. You
it
can't
is.
even
Just
take the whole
nibble.
day. It's just like, let me just pinch this off. But I think that's a testament to people with creative energies and creative spirits. Oh, really? Okay. So this always happens. I get a sign that and I'm like, we need more time.
I know.
But, people with creative energies approach problems in a very different way.
Yes.
And I have to commend you, even though it's overwhelming.
Very.
You don't have a defeatist attitude. You're basically saying, I'm going to use everything within me to figure this out.
Yes.
Even if I don't have it figured out right now.
Yes.
Now.
The answer will come.
Yeah.
And I have to stand and remain strong.
Yeah.
Until it does.
Right. Right.
Because it's not just myself, but it's also my children
You have a
now who are
village.
affected.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because now we've all uprooted our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to say, though, and at least end on a positive note, so I do have a huge exhibition coming up with The Carver here in San Antonio. It will premiere and it will open in February of 2023.
Okay.
It will be titled Ascension of the Artist. But it is going to chronicle not just, obviously my artwork, but it is going to take excerpts from my journal writings that I have done throughout this process to convey a story.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that is the beauty. Sometimes it's hard to find the beauty in things, but to take, there's a woman, and I have to give her a shout out. Her name is Stacy Jordan Shelton, and I absolutely adore her. And I don't want to misname her as far as what she does, but I will just say that she works to help people push through and past things, and she talks about alchemy all the time.
Uh-huh.
And The Alchemist is one of my favorite books. But when I look at you and when I hear you talk, you are an alchemist.
I am.
And I, even now, I just love how affirmative you were
Thank you.
in saying,
yes,
I am.
I accepted that quite some time ago. Yes.
That is so powerful. I look forward to your exhibition because these shows always go really fast. And I always think it's very, it's difficult for me. And what I'm still learning, because I'm new at this, is to stay engaged in the conversation and really give everyone an opportunity. But then also okay, we probably have 15 minutes left. We have 10 minutes left. So I'm sorry that we didn't get to go into even more, but I do want everyone to know, again, if you don't mind stating the dates again.
Yes.
And where else we can find you. I'm sure that there are people who have piqued an interest in your art and would like to view it. You have pieces that are originals. You have prints. I have some of your prints.
Yes.
So where can people find you? Not by DMing you.
Please don't DM me.
What are the proper channels? What are the proper channels to find you?
So I do have my website, which is akaimidavis.com, AKAIMI. Davis is the easy part, .com. I am also on Instagram. If you would like to see time-lapse videos of how I create my paintings, I am akaimi.the.artist. But if you type in Akaimi, it'll pop up. Most likely the first thing that pops up. That is where you can find me, and I'm also on Facebook as Akaimi Davis, mixed media artist.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm sure that people are going to be looking for you. I am looking forward to seeing everything that you create.
Thank you.
I admire you greatly.
Thank you.
And I just wish you all the best going forward. I know that you're going to continue to rise. You're in your Phoenix. I think you're in your Phoenix phase.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I'm looking forward to see all of that fire.
Yes.
So thank you.
There's a lot. There's a
yes,
lot
yes,
coming.
It's under the surface. I feel it bubbling. As joyful and delightful as you are, there's fire under there.
Yes.
And I see it.
Oh, yes.
I see it. So I'm looking forward to you bringing it.
I am. Yes, I am.
I know it.
And it's for the collective. It's not just for me.
No.
It's not just for me.
No. Well, thank you. Thank you
Thank
so much
you,
for being here and
Kirsten.
driving 2 hours to come to our studio, little old VodPod Media. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Same here.
Okay. We'll have to have you back one of these days. Soon.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.